Good afternoon, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. We are bringing you a bonus midweek stream, testing out a new location here with our friends at Spice Radio. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, Adam Keller, and it is Wednesday, July 28th, 2021, and we're broadcasting live only online from Spice Radio in Huntsville, Alabama. You'll be able to access a recording of this whenever you want on our YouTube channel. And tonight, the reason that we're doing a midweek stream is we're going to be trying to transition into a more kind of visually appealing set, something that makes more sense for a visual format than our WVNN studio. As you can tell, you know, if you've actually watched it and you don't just listen, you know, you can tell that's not like, you know, that's not a visual place, right? We just set up a camera and then we talk, and it's not, you know, it's not very pretty. And so we're trying to do something that's a little bit better for the visuals. And Spice Radio has been doing some really good stuff down here in Ben's basement, so we appreciate him. We had a really nice camera. It went kaput. We're going to try to figure that out. We're going to try to figure out some graphics. This is our first night down here in Spice Radio, so there have been some hiccups. As you can see, we're like 30 minutes late, and there's going to be some more hiccups. We're going to get you know, better visuals, better camera, better setup. I mean, we're going to keep making it better, but this is the first night, and we're really excited. We love the folks down here at Spice Radio, so again, want to thank them so much for giving us, you know, letting us have access to their studio. And we are joined tonight by Hannah Aizenman. She is the secretary for the New Yorker Union, and she is an Alabama native. So Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it. Really looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
So, the reason that I reached out to y'all's union on Twitter is because y'all had a fantastic campaign, and it was really successful. Y'all got a really good contract. I saw that your union tweeted that some of the members with the lowest pay got a 63% raise, if I read that right. I mean, that is just unheard of. So that's why I wanted to talk to you. I want to talk to you about that campaign, talk to you about that contract. But when we talked today, I found out that you're from Alabama. You called and you had an Alabama area code, and I was like,
hell yeah.
What is this? What's going on? So, Hannah, what are you doing in the Big Apple with all them funny talking people?
Well, I've been here. How long have I been here now? For like 8 years. I was going to say 5. But yeah, I grew up in Alabama. I grew up in Birmingham, and I left when I was 18 to go to college in Pittsburgh, the Birmingham of the North, as you might know it. And I ended up in New York from graduate school to study poetry, and that's how I ended up in New York, where I worked in the poetry department. So. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. That's awesome. What was your what did you what were you doing down here in what was it like growing up in Birmingham? Like, did you always want to be a poet and work at the, is this something that has kind of been a dream of yours to be able to do poetry stuff full time, or was it walk us through how you came to what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I attended, like I said, I grew up in Birmingham. I went to the Alabama School of Fine Arts, started there in the 7th grade. Nice. I was in the creative writing department there. And so, studied all kinds of writing. And yeah, I always wanted to live in New York. If you would ask me when I was 16 what I wanted to do with my life, I would have said that I wanted to live in New York and be a poet. And if I was really lucky, work at the New Yorker. And all of those things miraculously ended up happening. But I have so much affection for Alabama. I love going back there. My family is all still there. And I really, don't think that I would have come to poetry without it. Mm-hmm. It's really where I see my roots, and it's just an amazing place full of amazing people. And I'm really grateful to have grown up there. But I think I think I didn't appreciate it enough while I was living there, which is part of why I love going back so much.
Right, right. I think there's a lot that seems to be like kind of a common theme in the human experience is not really appreciating something while you have it. So what you said that, growing up here, really you wouldn't have had the poetry that you do without it. Like, what are kind of some of the themes and the stuff that you write about for the New Yorker?
Well, so first of all, I don't actually write poetry for the New Yorker. I'm a
Okay,
poetry editor there. So
I
I've
see. I
actually
see.
never published any poetry there, but I do write about poetry there.
Hmm.
And a lot of the poetry that I'm really interested in is poetry that's engaged with history and with the ways that history is like really present and palpable in the present, and the ways that it's kind of constantly affecting the ways that we speak to each other and the ways that we treat each other and the stories that we tell. And I really think that the South and Alabama is just so rich in stories and so rich in history, and I think has a really complicated history. And I think you know growing up and kind of then leaving and sort of reckoning with that and kind of having to being able to see the place that you grew up and the stories that you're familiar with from like many different perspectives, I think is definitely something that that I value in writing, that kind of complexity. And that's the kind of work that I'm interested in at the New Yorker, is trying to just really find a range. I mean, this is the other thing, is that there's so many great poets from Alabama and from the South, and from all over this country, and being able to, and hopefully always finding that work, identifying that work, and bringing it to a larger audience. That's what I want to do.
Right, right. Well, I think that the trying to bring out that the history that's an interesting segue to the union campaign, because there had been a history of news organization unionization in the past. Like that, it was pretty common for newspapers and magazines to be union, and that has really kind of gone by the wayside. And in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, we have seen just an explosion of unionization in the news industry. What, as somebody in the news industry, in the publishing industry, what do you think? Like, what do you make of that? Of the previous trend of unionization, its decline, and its resurgence in the 21st century?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with, like I said, this was like, for me, this was like a dream job. It was something I always wanted to do. And I think a lot of it has to do with that kind of conflation of, valuing the work in this kind of like ideological way, and then devaluing it as labor, right? And so like, I think there's a way, Sarah Jaffe has a great book, Work Won't Love You Back, that's about this kind of labor of love myth. And I think that in journalism and in the media, I think, people are really passionate about this work. People see, especially for the journalism, see it as like a public good. And so there's a sense that it is something that, that you do for the love of it, and that the, if not the prestige of it, that the value of the work is something that is rewarding in and of itself. And I think that has kind of led to, or led for many years to sort of a decline in the way that journalists and publishing professionals actually see themselves as workers. And I think recently, just with the turn that things have taken economically, politically, I think there's been really, a resurgence in how journalists and publishing workers see themselves as laborers and see their work as labor that does have value as labor and needs to be treated as such.
I think that's been one of the most exciting trends in the last few years, is seeing people in those kind of professions who, like you said, are attracted to the profession out of a love for the product or the service that may be coming out of it, whether it's writers or educators, nurses, people who care about their readers or their students, their patients. And that has been such a leverage against workers and trying to prevent that identity as a worker. So seeing this resurgence of, class consciousness among, white collar professionals and these types of professions, and just seeing the massive success like what y'all have been able to achieve in terms of unionizing and securing a contract is just really, I think it's very promising for the future.
Thank you. I think so too. Yeah, the News Guild has been doing amazing work. And yeah, I mean, I think it's also like there's a kind of like sense of scarcity, right? There's a kind of rarefication of these jobs, or a sense that you should be like
Right.
sort of lucky to be there. And I think being able to say that like, no, this is a public good and it's something that should be available. It shouldn't be built on the scarcity model as an industry. I think is really, really important. And yeah, I think that there's been such a huge wave of unionizing, not just in New York publishing, but in, you know, local papers, and just so much great work that is really exciting to see. It really feels like a new era, kind of.
Right. Yeah. Well, there is. I mean, you know, as far as the scarcity bit, you know, there's a huge loss of journalism jobs out there. You know, I mean, the decimation of local papers is something that basically everybody knows about. And you know, I've talked to some of the reporters at local news stations here, and it's like, it's crazy, the hours that they work, and the pay that they get, and the benefits that they get, or lack thereof in the case of the latter two things. I mean, it's just it is really kind of I mean, it's absurd. The exploitation. The last time that we spoke to somebody from New York was we spoke to the folks in the New York University Graduate Workers Union, and you know, there are similar veins there insofar as, you know, labor that was once valued seemingly is no longer anymore, because I know people that in Alabama that are graduate workers that have, you know, like a whole ass degree, right, that are making minimum wage in a you know, like working for their university while they're in graduate school. I mean, it's like, and not getting tuition assistance on top of that, you know, like they're paying tuition to go to grad school with a degree and making $7.25 an hour. Like, that is insane to me. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's quite that bad at newsrooms, but it's not much better. I mean, and so talk to us about you know, where y'all were at before you got the contract at the New Yorker.
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, talking about history, first of all, we were not the first union drive at the New Yorker. We unionized in 2018, but there was a drive in the 70s that did not end up resulting in a union or a contract until about 40 years later, when we took the mantle up. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the kinds of stories that you would hear, you know, we had people who had been, wages were very low, wages were very stagnant. We had people who had been working there for more than 20 years who were making less than $60,000. Like, we did a pay study, and we realized, of course, that there were all these inequities that were especially not serving, doing a disservice specifically to women of color and to women who are white women as well. But it was just you know, we knew that we had a lot to fix. And we knew also that, you know, people did feel genuinely lucky to work at the New Yorker, and wanted to be there, and wanted to stay there, and wanted to make careers there. That's why you have people working there for 20 years, even for these paltry wages. And I think that we really decided that, you know, it was time to say that just because you can pay us this way, you know, the people in power are never going to take it upon themselves to like do right by the workers, that you have to actually demand these things, and say that, you know, just because it is special to work here, it doesn't mean that we can accept mistreatment. Like, we need to be paid what we are worth, and we need protections around our work. That's another thing. I mean, talking like you are about newsrooms that are, these jobs are becoming scarce, you know. It's a very precarious industry, and we wanted to protect the things that we have, in addition to raising standards for everybody.
Right. And what was the you know, what was the kind of pay scale, and if you don't mind talking about it, I've seen it before, but before the contract, before the most recent one.
So the minimum salary was $42,000 before the contract, and with the contract, we were able to get immediately a median and minimum salary of 55. It'll be $60,000 a year by 2023. Everyone currently in our unit is going to be making above $60,000 immediately. More than half of our bargaining unit members, which is our union is over 100 people, are getting raises of more than 10%. And like you said earlier, there are people who are getting raises of up to 63%. So it's pretty huge.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that really is huge. And so you mentioned that, you know, you unionized in 2018, and here we are in 2021. You won an amazing contract. Like, right, this is a huge win, right? By any standards, this is a win. But that That is a long. That's a long time, right? So what was that like from winning the union to the what did that campaign look like?
Yeah, it was a long one. It was a tough one. I definitely didn't expect when I got involved the kind of fight that we had ahead of us. The magazine and Condé Nast recognized our union fairly quickly in 2018 voluntarily, which we did not necessarily expect that they would do. And then we got to the bargaining table in November of 2018. And we were having trouble getting to the bargaining table, getting the company to make this a priority and getting them to take us seriously and getting them to understand that what we were looking for really was real change and systemic change and things that were going to require work, right? That it was not just, we weren't just looking for the status quo with like a bow on top.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, we tried a lot. We tried really just like bargaining at the table and being very forthright about the things that we were looking for. We saw a lot of pushback on many things that we didn't expect to be a fight necessarily. One of those things was something like that we did end up winning, which was the end of the use of non-disclosure agreements at the company. This was something that, of course, the New Yorker had very famously reported on, and Throne and Farrow's reporting. And
right.
This was, something we expected shouldn't have been a problem for them. And we just saw these pushback on things. And so we really felt that it was important, to raise the stakes. Of course, last year, when the pandemic hit, that really changed a lot of our game. We were already in a place where we knew we were going to have to fight really hard. But then when we went entirely remote, and of course, we were in just this totally chaotic state, nobody knew what was happening. And so then we had to switch also to this digital model. We ended up, we had to mobilize really strongly. We had to stage a lot of very aggressive actions, I think, especially toward the end of the campaign. And in the end, I would say it was the fact that we had a credible strike threat. That was the thing that got us to the contract. And it took a while. It took time to build that power, but we did. And our members were really steadfast and were really ready to get the contract that we deserved. There were times where we could have thrown it in and accepted something less and accepted something that would have been like maybe okay, or that,
right.
would have been better than what we had, but not what we wanted. And people really said, no, we want to fight for what we know we deserve.
What do you credit that resolve to in terms of being willing to hold out for something that was a campaign or was a contract that you deserved, and being willing to engage in those actions? What do you think it was about your campaign and your bargaining unit that kept y'all together?
I think it was, first of all, a lot of very active organizing. I think just a willingness to have these conversations. Before our union formed, the New Yorker was really a place that was very quiet and very siloed, where people kind of didn't talk about what was going on in their specific department or in their specific kind of area. And then the building of the union was really about kind of like hearing that there were these other things going on that were, that you might be able to relate to, and recognizing that there were patterns at work here. This was not just, one person's experience, one person who is feeling this. This is something that is systemic, like I said. And so I think having those conversations, initiating those conversations and listening through those conversations was really important. But yeah, I think the fact that we do all care so much about our work and care so much about each other was really the thing that allowed us to see it through. And just a belief also that that we were doing the right thing, that that we wanted the magazine to live up to the standards of what they publish, and to say, if you're going to be, they said over and over, we want to be the best magazine in America, and we're going to say, if you're going to be the best magazine, you have to treat your workers the best as well.
Right.
And that's just a logical
right.
follows.
Yeah, and I think that I think that it's pretty clear that you and that a lot of other people really do take pride in working at the New Yorker and in the work that you put into the New Yorker. And one of the things that cropped up kind of from maybe some of the more boss sympathetic folks was that y'all, one of the quotes was that somebody said y'all were gleeful in trying to use the New Yorker's prestige, quote unquote, against it. And, they're referring to some of your signs and the informational picketing that y'all had that prestige doesn't pay the bills, or something like that. And this is that remark was either in an article or in a tweet, about actions that only came at the very tail end of 3 years of negotiations. So I don't know. I'm kind of showing how I feel about it. Like the idea that they could say you were gleeful in using the company's prestige against it in these negotiations seems kind of silly to me, especially knowing how long it was, what y'all were asking for, which is not crazy. It sounds it is really good in comparison to what it was, but $40,000 is like a starting salary in Huntsville, right? I mean, that's not that's in New.
It should be higher too.
Right. Yes.
Right.
I don't disagree at all, but like that's that I have been in my position now for I've been at the place that I'm at now for about 4 years, and I just crossed over 42,000 now, and but I mean that's in Huntsville, right? And that's not New York City is just a totally different ball game than that. So I don't know. I can't. But what did y'all think when y'all saw some of that pushback online and maybe from some of the more boss sympathetic outlets during towards the end of the campaign?
Yeah, it just seemed, like ridiculous and kind of just like, a total like misapprehension of what this campaign was about and how it had been going. Like you said, we'd been at this fight for almost 3 years already. It was something that, nobody wanted to get to this point. Nobody wanted it to take this long. I can definitely say, and I think my fellow officers and bargaining committee members and unit council members can all say that nobody wanted to put as many hours and as much energy and as much sweat and tears and blood into this campaign as we ended up having to. We would have liked it to be done sooner, but we really got to a point where we saw that, I was reading something today about the Warrior Met strike and saying that one of them saying that playing nice wasn't working, and we knew that it wasn't working, and we said it was not pleasant for us to get to that point. It wasn't something that we wanted to do, again, because we do value our work so much. It was something that we would have liked to have it handled in a more sympathetic and a more collegial way.
Right.
But you get to a point where you just have to take it.
Right.
People won't give you power. You have to build it. You have to take it by using it.
That's absolutely right, and I think that's something that often gets lost in mainstream media discussions of labor battles. That y'all didn't come right out of the gate 3 years ago with these actions. I mean, it took a long time of trying the polite way, trying the easier way, perhaps. But I thought it was interesting you said that the company recognized y'all voluntarily. So it's like it was okay to recognize the union, but then once they realized the union was actually serious and was there for a reason to negotiate a contract that really brought some dignity and fair wages and benefits, that's when their attitude seemed to change. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that, as an idea, as a concept, I think it was palatable enough. But I think when they realized that what we were looking for was real change and was things that were going to require overhaul, so one of the things that we did that I'm really proud of is that we actually built like a salary structure that is in place. When we did our pay study, we realized that there were, I think, among like the 100 odd people in our bargaining unit, there were like 80 plus different salary figures. Like there was not a clear like stepped system. There were people who were in the same job who were making like way different amounts of money, which again partly has to do with just inequity, but also just has to do with a kind of like just a lack of structure and a lack of accountability. And so, we went to everyone, we said, what is your job? What do you do? People didn't know their titles or their positions, and just kind of, we compiled all this information. We wrote all these job descriptions. We built a structure that says, okay, if you're in this department, this is the entry level position there. This is the next level position there. And these are the salaries that are minima for those positions. And when they realized that we were looking for that kind of accountability and that kind of transparency and to create that kind of structure, I think that was something, it's a threat to the status quo. When we saw, so in 2021, kind of our first major escalation was a full day walkout, which was after we had gotten the company's initial wage proposal to us. We had proposed wages back in November. And what they gave us was essentially a version of the status quo, and that to our membership was absolutely unacceptable. We said, we've been already here at that point for like 2 years. We were like,
Right.
this is not what we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to have been a slap in the face. But I think that is so. I love that one of the kind of most romantic, maybe we could say, things about unions for me is their ability to create the terms of their employment and their work and their existence. And that's something that's really pretty foreign to a lot of folks. And that's something that when I was actually involved in, I helped with the phone banking campaign for Amazon with RWDSU. And when I would talk to people, there were even some younger folks who, this was like the best job that they had ever had. $15 an hour is, to be fair, hard to come by in Bessemer, Alabama. And so they were like, I don't know about, I don't know about it. It seems fine to me. And I told them, yeah, but okay, the things that you like, they could be taken away tomorrow if Amazon so decided, and the things that you don't like, they can be made even worse tomorrow, right? The thing about unions and negotiation and bargaining is the ability to, y'all created your own wage structure. I mean, that's just really, really cool and really democratic in a way that that most people in this country don't get to experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's something that, again, that kind of, that kind of thinking like, well, it's good enough. Well, aren't I lucky, especially in this climate, to have a job and to have this job that I like or that has these perks? And then, to realize that kind of accepting what is good enough when there are, of course, people on the other end of it flying to space on their own dime. And you're like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And you can realize that, it can be good enough for now, but that it could change at any time. And one thing a structure like that does, that kind of scarcity thinking, it says, well, it's serving me right now, so I don't need to look out for other people. And I think that was something that we were really able to build over the course of our contract campaign, was really a sense of common good and a sense of care among our members, to say that, because not everybody was paid at the bottom of the scale. There were people who were making plenty more than that. And those people were also ready to walk out because they knew, again, that it's not guaranteed for them. It could change at any time. And I think that, the only way, again, to secure that and to secure anything and to secure a future is to understand that common good and to bond together around it.
Yeah, that common good, so I do not come from a union family. It all seems kind of very foreign to them. And one of the things that one of my family members said to me about it, a union contract, and in a lot of cases, if you do the same work, you make the same amount of money. Like, everybody makes the same or pretty similar, depending on how long you've been there. And he was like, that just seems insane to me. Like, why is it any of my business what the person next to me makes? Like, if I'm satisfied with what I'm making and he's satisfied with what he's making, and if he wants to make more, he can go figure it out and maybe make some more. And if I want to make some more, I can maybe go make some more. And what would you say to somebody like that? I've tried and I can't get through with them, so I don't know, maybe I can send them a clip of you but like, what, did y'all come across stuff like that, like in the campaign, like somebody saying, it's none of your business what I make, I don't care what you make, I'm happy here, leave me alone?
Pretty minimally. I mean, it was like something that if people were hesitant at first, I think people got really on board with it. One of the most powerful things that we did this twice actually, was a wage sharing action, a wage transparency action, where, again, we were all remote. So our entire union, we had a union Slack channel where every member just shared their salary and their salary story, where they came from, what experience they had, how long they've been here, and what figure they made. And then we did it in the company-wide Slack, so that all of our managers could see it, that we were, sharing this information, and that information is power. And I think, for one thing, that mindset of like, well, if I'm happy, what I don't know isn't going to hurt me.
Right.
is, for one thing, really easy to say if you're the person who's not going to be hurt by it. Again, what we discovered when we did our pay study is that the people overwhelmingly who were harmed by this lack of transparency and by this lack of system were women of color, especially. And there are these kinds of vague markers that managers can use when there's no system in place to say, like, well, it's about experience, it's about attitude, it's about being a go-getter, it's about whatever. They can just make anything up. And in terms of, I think that there is maybe, kind of an anti-union talking point that sort of says this idea that like unions will hold you back or will prevent the individual from like prevailing to its fullest form or something.
Right.
And for one thing, it's like, there's language in our contract that says like, these pay scales that we set up, this pay structure, these are minimum. People can make more than it at any time. Like you can give anybody more if they're doing a great job, if they go above and beyond, if they take on special projects, if they have special skills, whatever. You can always pay people more, but it's about making sure that that there is some consistency and that there is an expectation that people coming into this job will be starting from a similar baseline. And of course, there are all, other kinds of factors that go into people's professional success, but it's about setting people up for success, really, and setting up people from different backgrounds for success in the same environment.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that's so cool about what y'all did in that campaign, and what really is a value to union campaigns and contract negotiations in general is the communication that you have to have amongst your members. And sometimes, you really don't know what you don't know. Until you start to compare notes and, find out how other people are being treated. Sometimes you find out those inequities, like you said, where, maybe on the surface level, you didn't think there was a problem until you lay everybody's name and salary and years of experience. You start laying that stuff out, and then you find those patterns, and that can really change it. So, your family member, Jacob, sometimes he may feel that way until if there was more information he were to learn. If he were to learn, like, all the people who came in after him are making, a ton more to do less work, suddenly that attitude might change a little bit. And I think that's, what y'all have been able to establish is what one of the big potentials of unionizing can do is setting a baseline and setting a transparent set of expectations that makes it harder to be abused and taken advantage of because, as an individual, you were just so much more open for that kind of manipulation.
Exactly. I mean, I was definitely one of those people. Again, like I came here, I was so happy to just get in the door.
That's understandable.
Like, oh my God. All of my jobs before had been, this is my first salary job. I had always worked at, at like 3 different jobs at a time, like waitressing and tutoring and like, whatever else I could kind of cobble together. And so I was like, oh yeah, sounds pretty good. It's the same amount every year. And then, when I found out that I was like at the bottom of the pay scale, I was like, oh, this is not as good as I thought it was.
Right. Yeah. I saw somebody, and I don't think they worked at the New Yorker, but they had just gotten it was somebody retelling a story on Twitter about their first time that they got on as a full-time staff member for some journalism outlet. And, she was like telling her retired steelworker granddad, like she was like, I got salary, I got a 401k, I've got healthcare, and then he was like, isn't that like a job? Like, what do you mean you have healthcare? But
the things that become victories.
Yeah, right. But and the hours, like thinking about, I've got the Frito-Lay strike on my mind, and the fact that they went from an 84-hour work week to a 72-hour work week, and that's like their win, right? That they can't be forced to work 7 days a week.
That sounds like a win from over 100 years ago.
It's insane.
19th century. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I haven't had, and I said this, that I haven't had to work more than 40 hours a week in years since I graduated college and I got this job. And it's been so nice to have, I mean, even 40 hours a week, like that takes up a lot of time and you've got to recoup, but there is some amount of time that I can spend, like I do this. I do union stuff. I'm able to like go on dates with my girlfriend, like I have a life outside of work, and I do not dream of labor, as the saying goes. And like, thank God, like, and that's everybody should have that, I think, and everybody should be able to excel in the work that they do, and that's one of the one of the things that I hear about unions is that they disallow or make it harder to excel as an individual in your job capacities. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense, because as somebody that is more protected, you're more likely to maybe go out on a limb and try something that you wouldn't have tried for fear of retribution, or suggest something that maybe will hurt the boss's ego, but you don't care because he can't fire you just because you made him cry, right? And so these are the just working in a union workplace just seems like, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to, but I've already gotten off on a long tangent, and we're far away from talking about you. So you said that the way that you were able to win your contract, you feel like the linchpin was the credible strike threat. Talk to us about, like, what do you mean a credible strike threat?
Yeah, so a little bit similarly, actually, to the kind of way the union formed and then getting to the contract. So we actually took our strike vote back in March, and it passed by 98%. 98% of our union voted in favor of allowing the bargaining committee to call a strike, should it come to that.
That's great.
And yeah, I mean, it was, and if you had asked me probably in 2018 with this group of 120 people, 98% of them, are they going to be ready to walk out on strike? I would have been like, I don't know. I don't know if it'll get to that. It won't matter. But yeah, I mean, people were ready to go. But then, 3 months passed between the strike vote and when we got to that agreement. And it really got to a point, I think, where, we were making a lot of noise because, again, we didn't want to have to go on strike. We know that's a huge sacrifice, and it was something that, again, our members, many of them are, already on kind of not making that much money, don't have huge savings. New York is very expensive. We didn't want to put people out of health insurance during a pandemic, although we would have had backing from the guild, so it wasn't a terror. But I think what really kind of tipped the needle, and I think when the company really saw that we were serious, they had seen this vote. We'd been throughout bargaining, we would have members who would always come and observe bargaining. And so we had our 8 bargaining committee members, but we would always have members, we wanted to remind the company that they weren't bargaining with the 8 people on the bargaining committee. They were bargaining with the 100 people who were their staff. And I think one of the things that really kind of made them realize that we were serious was that we actually published a website, a strike website, that had not only the bounds of the picket line we were planning to set out, but also had pictures and statements of every member in our union who was committed to walking out on strike. And I think seeing that their staff was ready to put their faces and their names and their words and their hearts out on the line like this, I think made them really shape up. And it was a lot of work to get there. Again, I think it's a place where, and it's an industry where people are kind of loath to sort of stick their neck out. It's, it relies a lot on personal relationships, and there's a lot of and people, do have these close personal relationships with members of management, with other people in the industry, and people are loath to kind of rock the boat in that way. And I think it was a really powerful statement for people to come together and say, no, I am going to stand up for this, and I'm going to do it publicly, and I'm going to put my name and my face on it. So yeah,
I got to say,
also, I think,
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, that was so huge, the fact that people were willing to do that. I remember having a conversation with a experienced union organizer down here in Alabama about that, and she was just shocked. I mean, it was hard for her to process that many members would be willing to go out publicly, and take a stand like that, because, certainly in my experience and in her experience, it's hard to get people to even behind the scenes sometimes commit. So to put it out there hey, here's who I am, and here's what I'm about, and here's what I'm willing to do on behalf of my brothers and sisters. That's huge, and that is really a testament to the sort of organizing that y'all did all along.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that is, that's one of, anytime you read anything about how do I organize an effective union, how do I do a strike, that's one of the, that escalation from, okay, we've we've got a committee then maybe voting in private and releasing the results of that vote, like that would be the authorization of the strike. That vote in and of itself is a very big thing, but you don't have faces, you don't have a public commitment from all of those workers itself. And so that is another escalation. And like you said, you think that it kind of put the fear of the Lord in them, and that is so important to the being able to have that kind of power, because like Adam said, I mean, even in a lot of union workplaces, that is not something that a lot of folks are willing to do, and they're not willing to do it because they fear some kind of retaliation from the boss. But if everybody does it, it's the same logic as a strike. If everybody does it, then we can't be fired for it, because we have the leverage there. And so taking that collective action it really is powerful. It's not just something that you read in books from people that like don't know what they're talking about. They're in the books for a reason. It works.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to that question of glee again, while we were not like gleeful to be like doing this, I will say that there was like the solidarity was just like so amazing. And to realize, I think, it was not just people saying like, oh, I'm gonna like put my picture up. I think it was people really realizing like, well, if nobody else does this, like there's no one else who can do this for me. Like I have to do this, and everyone beside me has to do it. And I think that kind of collective feeling is something that I had never experienced it in that way before, of people really saying like, I am committing myself to this collective and to this cause, and we're going to do it together. And there's no way I can back out. And so I think that was like, it was just like such an amazing, sense of strength that I think that, it comes from using it. I think it was like, we had these kind of mini actions building up to that, and it took a while to get there, but people really felt committed to the cause. And it's something that, just allows you to like take so much power over the conditions of your work when you say that, no, we have the power, we make the thing.
Right.
Do you think that that like collective experience, has that changed you, and has that changed your colleagues?
I think so, definitely. I mean, it's definitely changed me personally. I think it's changed our workplace for the better. I think it, I hope that it has historic implications. But I think that, I came from kind of an arts background from writing. I used to be a ballet dancer, or I was trained as one. And like, it's a very kind of like culture of just like trying your hardest and saying like, okay, like I'll pay my dues and then I'll get there. It's very kind of a solitary feeling and a solitary idea. And I think, like I said, when I was elected the secretary of our union, I don't think I knew what I was taking on. And I think if you
nobody who's elected secretary ever does.
Right. As somebody who's as someone who's secretary of 2 labor organizations. Yeah.
And if you would have asked me like, will you go on strike in X amount of time, like with your colleagues, I think I don't know. I don't think I would have said no, but I just, it would have been such like a foreign idea to me. But I think over the course of that campaign, like really seeing like not like how many people depend on like me personally, but like seeing how all of us depend on each other and how all of our actions like affect each other, and how we can all support each other in this way was just a really incredible thing that I had not thought about. I mean, it really made me think about like, I don't know, I wouldn't have said that I was like an activist of any kind really before this. I support many causes and like, but it gave me a lot of hope for political organizing and community organizing, that if we all commit to this kind of change and then we all work for it, it's not easy, and it doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen overnight. And it is these series of kind of like small gains, small wins. And it's something that the experience of it, one of our members said today. So of course, the happy culmination of all of this is that today our union unanimously ratified the agreement that we got to in June. So we had a vote, everyone voted yes. And one of our members quoted, I think Emma Goldman, about how there has to be joy in the revolution, right? There has to be dancing, and there has to be music, and there has to be this kind of care and this kind of communal spirit. And I think that was something that was really an important part of our campaign as well, is that it was very much out of kind of a love, if I can be,
absolutely. Amen, sister.
A little romantic about it.
Yeah, we are not opposed to romantic language.
And the spirituality of collective struggle.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have, as somebody who has never, you know, I've gone through a couple of stages of like trying to be more spiritual or religious, and it's never really kind of clicked for me, I guess. But I've had as close to a religious experience as I ever have, like talking to workers, you know, like, and it's the kind of, you know, that love that kind of organizing and the and that working together can foster between people who otherwise have pretty little in common. I mean, it's beautiful, I think, and so that I'm just so excited by what y'all are doing. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight, and it's so cool hearing that y'all have kind of that same like twinkle in your eye, I guess you could say, about it. I think that's great. So what's kind of the future look like, I guess, to kind of wrap it up? How, you know, what are y'all's goals going to be going forward? How do you think that this is going to change the New Yorker as a magazine, as an institution, and what is a union going to be doing moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely hope, I think one of the most positive changes that will come out of this is that, again, I think it will just allow diversity to flourish at the New Yorker. I think it will open the doors for a lot of people who wouldn't have had a chance to work there otherwise, and to not only to work there, but also to feel secure sharing their ideas and sharing their opinions, and having input, and doing the kind of work that they want to do. So I hope that brings more passion and more expertise, and more perspective to the work that we already do. As far as internally, I think our kind of next step is really making sure that you know, that our contract is enforced. I think that's something, you have a contract, but it's also organizing never stops. You have
Absolutely.
to kind of constantly make sure that, that people are abiding by that. So I think it's kind of about continually empowering people to know that what they are entitled to, and to know what they can demand and what they should demand. And so I think that's a lot. Of course, we have, you know, we didn't get everything that we wanted in our contract. It's an amazing contract, but we had a few like cherries that we wanted. So there are things for, you know, for contract too, down the line, but can't think about that yet. Like, we just came off the win. So yeah, I hope that it's more solidarity. I hope it's just like building more, and, you know, continuing to be creative and find new ways to reach each other, and to connect throughout the industry. I think that's another thing, is that was really important to us, was that we wanted to raise standards not only at the New Yorker and not only at Condé Nast, but also throughout the industry. I think we want to find ways to help out the freelancers who work at the New Yorker, who were the Freelance Solidarity Project was such a huge source of support and solidarity throughout our campaign. I think we really want to do right by them, and I think we want to you know, continue to raise standards throughout the industry, and build solidarity, not just in New York, but and not even just in our industry, but across, I think, across labor, and across the country.
Yeah. On that note, do you have any kind of like final or lessons to pass forward, maybe to media workers who are not unionized yet, or don't have a union, you know, like in their immediate future necessarily, but maybe hear the sort of success that y'all have had at the New Yorker, and you know, what would you say to those types of folks, especially those of us down here in Alabama?
I think I would just say that, like, you already have the power, kind of. You just have to find it. You just have to identify it, and you have to nurture it, and you have to exercise it. It's a muscle. And I think just reaching out to other people, it seems so simple, and it is so simple, but it just starts with a question. It starts with, how are you doing? And just reaching out to a fellow worker and seeing what you can build together. And I think it's just one person at a time. I think it's one conversation at a time. So being patient, but also being having vision. I think don't settle for less. And know what you need, and go for it, and be ready to put in the work.
Oh yeah.
All right. I don't have anything else. Either of y'all have anything else you want to close with? All right.
I appreciate you so much for making the time with us, and also just really congratulations again on the great win on this contract, and looking forward to many good things to come.
Thank you so much, and good luck to y'all. And thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hannah.
All right. Solidarity.
Solidarity. All right. So there we go. That wraps it up. Ben, you can go ahead and turn the stream off. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.